guys, so welcome back to a brand new episode. I know it's been a minute. I've been kind of putting this one off a little just because I'm gonna be very honest. The fifth and sixth installment of this series is definitely not my favorite. I hate to say it, but it's so not the same without Wes Craven there, and I think it shows, unfortunately. I think they got it a bit better, I guess, I don't know, in the sixth one, but it still feels just not fully there. I don't know. I still love the movies, of course, but I don't know. It just does not feel like the originals, and yeah, we'll dive into that. There are a few different sources that I want to cite for some different ideas, kind of. More towards the end, though. I think it's a little bit pushing it, a bit of a reach, but it might as well. It brings up new discussions. We'll be using The Monstrous Feminine by Barbara Creed, and then also Powers of Horror by Julia Kristeva. So Scream 5, which is just titled Scream. That's an interesting choice. I know this one is directly trying to make a callback to the original, but it's... So, the fifth installment is directed by Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin. It was released January 14th, so kind of like post-holiday. Interesting time to release a horror movie. And it was written by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, so not our original Kevin Williamson. And this one came out in 2022. Now, this was also after all of the pandemic and whatnot, so people were really eager to get back into the cinema to watch new movies, and it didn't necessarily feel like a return to anything, you know? It's kind of like with the final chapter of the new Halloween trilogy, it just kind of didn't lead to anything, I guess. Grossed over 138 million with a 24 million budget, so that's pretty good. 25 years after a streak of brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, California, a new killer dons the ghost face mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past. Kind of sounds like the third one, doesn't it? So reprised roles once again. Thank you to, I believe it was Miss Morris Reeds, I believe, corrected me. It's Neve Campbell. Neve. She returns as Sydney once again. Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers. David Arquette as Dewey. Skeet Ulrich does return as Billy. That was a pretty major moment, I'm not gonna lie. Billy returning, that's pretty cool. Heather Matarazzo also returns as Martha Meeks, and Marley Shelton is now Sheriff Hicks. Something happened to Dewey. We'll get into that. New roles: Jenna Ortega plays Tara Carpenter. Melissa Barrera plays Sam Carpenter. Mikey Madison is Amber Freeman. Jack Quaid is Richie Kirsch. Dylan Minnette plays Wes Hicks. Mason Gooding plays Chad Meeks. Is he like son of Cuba Gooding Jr.? Gotta be. Jasmine Savoy Brown plays Mindy Meeks, and Sonia Amar plays Liv Mackenzie. This new leg of the franchise is also done under Spyglass Media Group. The Weinstein Company sold off licensing, so they bought it, and it's now away from the Weinsteins. Now, the opener to this movie is pretty good. It's pretty good. I was a little bit shocked to see that they were going to have Tara, Jenna Ortega's character, be the first kill. It seemed fitting because Jenna's like, when this came out, she had already been in X, I believe, and she was really making a name for herself within the horror community. This kind of like solidified it, in my opinion. Her acting in this opening scene is very good, and pretty much any of the attack scenes. The acting is really good in this movie. So when we are going to be critical of these, because I think the writing is horrible, but that's the writing. I want to make sure that we differentiate, in our minds, writing away from acting. you know, because I think a lot of these actors were doing the best that they could with what they were given. Just my opinion. So, 25 years after Billy Loomis and Stu Macher's killing spree in Woodsboro, a high school student, Tara Carpenter, is home alone when she is attacked by Ghostface. This has to be one of the most brutal opening attack scenes in the franchise. They really were like, okay, we're starting it off with a bang. Because not only did she have her leg snapped, like stomped on, snapped, she also got stabbed completely through the hand. Like, she really went through it. And she took a lot of stabs as well before the police showed up. They really torment Tara's character a lot in this movie. But I did find it interesting because they were talking, you know, in the phone game. Tara is going on about elevated horror, referencing like the Babadook. And she also like very blatantly kind of shits on the Stab series, which is also inherently making fun of Scream. But like, even in defense of basic serial killers, the basic slasher films is where a decent amount of the psychology behind horror and modern horror comes from. So even if you want to view it as not being super in-depth, it still kind of is. You can still equate what you're watching on screen to the times, and whether the director wanted to or not, it's going to perceive the emotions of the culture at that moment. I mean, if you look at nowadays, I mean, we are getting a lot of sequels, but if you look in between those sequels, we are kind of in a rebirth of religious horror right now. And I find that interesting. There's a lot of different religious themed horror movies coming out. And I think you have to sift through those as well and find which ones are like propaganda and which ones, you know. We will get into that because the next movie we're going to talk about is Immaculate, and that's about the church. So we'll get into that in that one. Also, in this opening kill scene, we see the killer exploring using technology more against his victims and their own technology. And just, I find it cool, I guess. As these movies continue to come out, we still are getting new ways for the killer to really torment them. But Tara is the first opening girl to survive. And as we know so far, she's the only, might remain the only. There's also, I heard rumors that there was another script that got scratched where Tara and Amber were, you know, love interests. I don't think that's supposed to be implied in this new kind of story we got, but I think there is still evidence of it there, you know? I just think they didn't want to be so kind of over the head about it. Also, when the scene cuts to Sam, Tara's sister, and her boyfriend, the music is such a terrible choice. It's so freaking corny, and I just hate it. I hate it. I really do. And it was during that scene of them interacting where I also had a really big issue with the writing. It seems corny as heck, and it doesn't feel normal or natural. It's almost like trying to be that humoristic kind of back and forth that past characters in Scream movies have had. And that felt so much more natural than this does, you know? And I just feel like the writing, it doesn't really translate super well to on-screen chemistry. The new friend group is fun, at least. You know, we have Wes, who is an homage to Wes Craven. There is a lot of very obvious red herrings, though, in this movie, I would say. A lot. So, in Modesto, Tara's estranged older sister, Sam Carpenter, is informed by Wes Hicks, of one of Tara's friends, about the attack. Sam returns to Woodsboro with her boyfriend, Richie Kirch, to visit Tara at the hospital where Sam is reunited with Tara's friend group. This was also kind of a weird scene. It's kind of an odd scene because Amber's attitude in it, like, you can just tell, dude, that Amber doesn't like anyone else. You can just tell she's got a very kind of pissy but protective attitude over Tara, which I think adds more to that kind of lesbian subtext. But also Amber has very clear distaste for Tara's family directly, like her family, not just the other people that surround him, but her direct blood. She doesn't like them, and makes that very well known, which just seems odd. Plus then her and Richie kind of have like a negative, almost mocking back and forth with each other, but it's still more chemistry than you would expect, I guess. And if you know, you know. That night, Liv's ex-boyfriend, Vince Schneider, who is Stu's nephew, so connection again back to the original, but he was an obvious red herring, is killed by Ghostface. And this was in a bar, or outside of a bar, but the kids, they were in the bar too, and I was just wondering, like, how the hell are they in there? Tara also clearly, once again, does not like Sam. Wes even goes on to joke, kind of jokingly, kind of seriously, being like, what, no one is good enough for Tara, and now her family isn't either? Like, they give you so many different routes to go down with thinking of who the killer could be. And I'll be honest, on first watch, I did not suspect Tara. Or, not Tara, oh my gosh. I accidentally wrote Tara for a lot of my notes. Amber, I didn't suspect Amber for a while, but kind of makes sense, right? We do get a return of Red Right Hand, which, you know, is kind of like the theme song for Scream. It isn't, but it is, because it was in the original. But once again, calling back to the original. I also thought killing the obvious red herring in the beginning could be a really good choice, but it also makes me think, like, is this movie kind of working too hard to subvert our own expectations? Maybe, because the only reason I feel that way is because very clearly sets up this guy as a red herring character, and then not even 10 minutes later kills him off completely. It's like they know you're suspecting him, so okay, we're going to kill him off really quickly. Like, I don't like to be able to see the director trying to directly get one over on us. I don't know. It feels more natural when it's in a Wes Craven film. Just gonna say that. Also, the return of Billy Loomis, complete fanfare, but I'll take it. You only really see him in visions, like in mirrors and stuff, so whatever. I wish Stu would come back. They make reference to that in the 6th one, that there are people that think Stu Macher is still alive. So, cut to, we are back in the hospital, and Richie and Amber are arguing in the hospital. Still very odd. Amber doesn't have such vocal distaste for other people as much as she does Richie, and that makes it come off almost forced, right? I'm trying to get better at, like, the whole spoilers and whatnot, but if you're watching a deep dive, I'm gonna assume you probably saw the movie. Also, the reveal that Sam's dad is Billy Loomis, just Sam, not Tara, and that's the reason why, like, their whole family broke apart. It's a lot. It's a lot of exposition to just be given like that, literally thrown on us. I feel like Tara just, like, overwhelmed getting all of this information at once. And even she's like, F you, get out of here. That scene, I think, is more a highlight of the bad writing and not so much the bad acting, because I don't think there's bad acting, to be honest. I think the part where they could have probably ended it was when she just went off the rails and was like, I started doing every drug that I could get my hand on. Like, it just became so much, you know? But her telling Tara about who her father is, that's after Sam gets attacked in the hospital, out of nowhere, in, like, the break room. Sam finding out who her real father was resulted in their parents' separation, and this is why Sam became estranged from Tara. Kind of skip a little bit. This one also feels really jumpy, I'm not gonna lie to you. Sam and Richie visit Dewey Riley, who is now officially divorced from Gail Weathers, although he still watches her morning talk show in New York every single day. He still very much like cares about her, and I think it's more insecurity bred why they broke up. But Gail also like isn't the type of person to have insecurities with, you know? But they do reconnect. It's still nice. But that's not really the arc that I think anyone wanted for Dewey. Like, he got let off from being sheriff and all that, and it's just so sad. Like, no one wants that for Dewey. No one wanted that, and he's just a sad character, and that's not who Dewey was, you know? So it's just kind of unfortunate to see. But Dewey basically solves it right in the beginning, says check the friend group, and it's the boyfriend, and there's that spoiler alert. Dewey also calls Sydney, and she's still with Mark. She's walking the kids, talking to him, and this is of course such like a like fanfare moment. We're getting Sydney Prescott again. Really, the original three are all back in this movie. And it's the last time that that's going to happen, unfortunately. But it's also obvious Sydney still thinks that Dewey is working as sheriff, and he tells her, like, oh, everything's going well. He just doesn't, like, have the heart to make her feel sad or anything or feel bad for him. And it's just, Dewey, break my heart, dude. So Sam and Richie, they ask for help in stopping the killer, and he contacts Gail and Sydney, warning them about the return of Ghostface. Dewey joins them at the Meeks twins' home, niece and nephew to Randy, and is reunited with their mother, Martha, Randy Meeks' sister, who does know Sydney and Dewey more specifically. Now, I absolutely love the Randy Meeks Memorial Home Theater. Incredible. And basically, Mindy is the new Randy, and she lets everyone know that we are in a requel. Always goes back to the original. Basically, we're following the original structure of Stab. They reference the Stab movies, but we know it's supposed to be Scream. So Mindy deduces that the killer is making a requel, using Tara and her friends as the new generation, and using Sam's connection to Billy as a way to weave the legacy characters. Following that scene is the kill scene for Wes and Deputy Hicks, or Sheriff Hicks. This one kind of hurt to watch, but I found it very interesting that they were filming a man how we would watch, like, in Psycho, the shower scene and everything. Filming a man in that manner in a slasher film is kind of subversive, you know? Men die a very specific way in horror movies, and so do women. And that kind of sexualization of the male body is unseen in horror. It is. I also thought the sequence with Sheriff Hicks talking on the phone with Ghostface is also really good. She says, I prefer animations and musicals. When he asks if she likes scary movies or what her favorite scary movie is, I freaking love her. But really good acting during this part. Also, now we've come to expect that, like, when a character opens a door, this is in relation to Wes moving around the house when we know that Ghostface is stalking him. Like, opening the door, the music builds up and then closes it and there's nothing behind it. That happens multiple times in this one scene. That rubs me the wrong way. I was like, okay. Like, this is tiring. Because the first time it happened, I thought to myself, like, no one's going to be there. And then the second time, I was like, yeah, no one's going to be there again. And it was just like, eye roll. But this is also like a pretty brutal kill. I mean, the stabbing through the neck. It looks a little wonky, I'm not going to lie. You can tell it's CGI, I think. If not, rough. But Judy's death also right in the front yard is very brutal. Cut to, we see a van pull up and someone in a very bright pantsuit crawls out. I love how even before she turns around, you already know who it is. So we have the return of Gail, and she even introduces herself as Gail Riley by mistake once she sees Dewey, and then quickly, corrects herself. But she runs off and she's pissed off at him for trying to explain that the killer is back over a text. And their connection is still just so strong, and you can tell that there's still a lot of feelings there. Also, there's a Dead Meat podcast cameo from James and Chelsea. Listen, goals. But if you listen to how they're talking about the movie in the review, they would never talk about a movie like that. They would never be that mean or like overly critical about a movie, even if they hated it, I think. So at the hospital, Tara and Richie are attacked by Ghostface. This is another brutal one. Poor Tara is freaking put through it, dude. Oh my god, she is the tortured one in this. Sam doesn't take too much damage until the end, I guess. But even then, like, way better than Tara's. Holy crap, that poor girl was a literal butcher block the whole movie. This is also the scene where Dewey does die. And he did not deserve to go out the way that he did. It just angers me a little bit that it was so kind of like cheap a bit. Honestly, it was sloppy. That's what it seemed to be. Because why would he go and look at his phone at that very second? Like, for real? Really? It's just... But also, okay, spoiler alert time. We know that this Ghostface is Amber. Amber is in that costume, and yet she is somehow taller than Dewey and able to gut him. Now, I know that we said before they don't pay attention to like height differences and whatnot. They don't think of really which one of them is it in the costume at that moment. But we should have some idea that this is realistic to what we're expecting, because there's just no way. There's no way. Plus the whole it's an honor, like, I didn't want Dewey to be the one that, gets it in this film. Sydney arrives in town after learning of Dewey's death and meets both Gail and Sam at the hospital. Now, Gail actually made me cry the first time that I watched this. It was an emotional watch for me, as Dewey being one of my favorite characters. And that's when they reunite. Sydney does try to pass down some knowledge to Sam and reassures her that she isn't a victim. This kind of motive that we've been carrying on since the fourth movie. But Sam doesn't want to take too much advice. She's like, I'm grabbing my sister and I'm leaving. Like, y'all can do this on your own. I don't care. But Sydney does place a tracker on her car. Very Gale Weathers, as she says. So yeah, Sydney asks Sam to help stop the killer, but Sam declines, choosing to leave town with Richie and Tara. Sydney and Gail follow the trio to Amber's. Tara couldn't find her spare inhaler, so she has to go now and pick up the extra one that's at Amber's house. Now, we don't find out specifically what house this is until Gail and Sydney show up, so just wait on that. There's also some really weird intimacy scenes between Chad and Liv, his girlfriend in the movie. Like, he clearly suspects her of being the killer, but it also feels kind of like he might be gay kind of like thing, because she's asking him to go upstairs so that they can finally, do it, basically, she says. And he's just giving her the runaround. Like, I don't know. It's kind of giving that, but if you've seen the sixth one, then you know that that's not the case. So I also really enjoyed the kind of recreation scene. Mindy recreating the scene with Randy, in the living room as she watches the movie. Literally yelling at her uncle, like, turn around, Randy, turn around. And then she gets the idea, turn around. And Ghostface is there. He attacks her. But actually before that, Chad's attack happens. Lots of men dying how women would conventionally in slasher movies. Whether you want to look at it that way or not, where men and women are stabbed and how they're stabbed is a part of the narrative with some of these movies, or more so the psychology behind them. But also, how did Richie, Sam, and Tara not see Ghostface right there as they were pulling in? Like, the lights went directly on him and everything. You would have seen that, right? Just my opinion. Also, Richie kind of like closes down the party as they get there, and Tara's like, listen, I need my inhaler, just need to be in and out real quick. Richie shuts down the whole party, and as he's doing so, he says, I'm saving your life, I promise, as he's guiding people out. And it seems very just kind of like funny, witty in the moment, but if you know, you know, he's literally telling everyone, like, listen, it's about to go down, get out while you can. Also, Liv getting shot in the head and Amber revealing herself as one of the killers is pretty iconic. It throws you right into the final act. It's just like, even the camera, it does one of those like zoom in, zoom out things, you know, where you zoom out from the person but the background gets closer, that kind of like thing. It's one of those moments where it's just like the reality really sets in for all the characters. And Amber even says, welcome to Act 3 after the first shot. Sam and Richie run into the basement. Sam makes sure to grab a knife off the counter though. And Richie is, for some reason, trying to turn Sam against Tara, which, suspicious. Why would you go for Tara out of all of it? And he exclaims that there's always two. And this is where you can see Sam kind of like back up a bit. She's now becoming really suspicious of Richie. So Sydney and Gail show up, and this is kind of when you get the reveal that it's Stu Macher's old house. So fanfare there as well. We're back right to the original location of the final party scene in the first one. And Gail gets shot like instantly, literally instantly. And she's basically out of commission until they get to the kitchen later on. It felt very kind of symbolic, Sydney having to enter back into this house on her own to go back into not just the place where her original trauma happened, but into an event directly related to that original trauma and having to relive it again. And this is, you know, more stuff, fighting and whatnot happens. And this is where we find out that Richie is the second killer, Sam's boyfriend, which Dewey called right in the beginning. And basically their whole motive is someone has to save the franchise. No one takes the true fans seriously. Also kind of addressing toxic fandom, how Richie doesn't see how a fandom could be toxic because it just means that they love something so much. And there's just this kind of perverted idea of what fandom is, you know? That's kind of the case in most of these, I guess. But ever since the third movie, it's basically just people trying to recreate the originals, right? And then they said, like, it's not some run-of-the-mill sequel. We even killed off one of the main characters, being Dewey. This is also one of the first deaths by fire that we get. I mean, it's technically not death by fire, but anything by fire. Really kind of the first one we've gotten, with Amber literally being set ablaze because she has a giant bottle of vodka smashed over her head, and then she's lit up, literally. Sydney even says, enjoy that torch, you know, one of those good old classic one-liners. Sam also is the one that kills Richie, and it's a very brutal scene. Sam definitely is her father's daughter, alright, we'll say that. She is crazy with a knife. It's a very brutal kill. She stabs him like through the cheek, slices his throat, stabs him 20-something times. It's intense. And then Sydney does tell her, careful, they always come back, as Amber runs out, still alive, completely charred to a crisp. Tara is actually the one that kills Amber. She shoots her in the head. But I find it interesting, because Tara did say, I still prefer the Babadook. Amber clearly was a huge fan of Stab. Tara also clearly did not like Stab. I think that's kind of what their motive of it was supposed to be, like this anti-intellectualism aspect to it. But I don't think that's the case. I think it was the lesbian. love story that we didn't get. It is a corny closer as well. The music is corny, and Sam being like, am I going to be okay? To Sydney, and Sydney saying, eventually. It's, it's whatever. But Chad does survive, so there's that. And so does Mindy as well. So we have way more survivors for the final party scene than we normally would. This movie, I know it doesn't seem like there's too many kills in it. It's a relatively lower amount. It's still in there and they're still good, but it's a relatively lower amount of kills for this movie, I would say. With that, let's check the comments. So the top review is love it every time. All right, short and to the point. So for the top critical review, they actually reviewed Scream 4. Wonderful. This movie was okay, but there was so many cuss words it made it hard to watch. I understand people are going to cuss, that's life, but it's not like it adds anything to the movie, and it was mostly the F word and goddamn, which I think are the worst ones. Cussing makes people sound ignorant when it's to this degree. Just for fun, we counted cuss words, and there were 80 plus in less than half of the movie. Damn. Really? Oh lordy, okay. Now, this first one, so I think Tara and Sam specifically play into a interesting kind of dynamic. I'm referencing Those Females Who Can Wreck the Infinite is a chapter in Powers of Horror, essay on abjection. And it does bring up the two-faced mother, which I think is interesting. Mothers aren't necessarily portrayed the best way in this franchise. I think the only one that we got that was relatively good was Jill's mom in the fourth movie. So there's that. There is an interesting kind of dynamic between mother-daughters in this franchise. But specifically, it makes reference to two kind of archetypes of women within horror. The capable woman, the intellectual, I think that's Tara, does not escape being grotesque either. The violence, if she does not share in the sordid craftiness. She is fated to prove the absurdity of reason, a masculine element, when it is sheltered in a body that is feminine to boot. And she kind of is like the intellectual voice is the voice of reason within this franchise. And I don't think that's solely just her character, but that's how it started her character off with that kill scene. And then it talks about another archetype, which I think relates more to Sam. And there you have the muse, just as she is after 2,000 years of art and religion. A muse in the true tradition of the lowly genres, apocalyptic. The pitiful power of the feminine, however be it drive or murder, is in fact unleashed only with the help of masculine degradation or bankruptcy. A bankruptcy of the father and manly authority. I think that Sam is talking about the bankruptcy of the father, Billy's influence, and the manly authority in her life, which would be Richie. I don't know. I don't think the fifth or sixth movie are necessarily as deep as the others, but these are kind of some maybe things that they didn't anticipate for these characters, but we can still draw parallels, Now, Scream 6, this is the last one as of now. I think this will probably be the last Scream that we get, guys, unfortunately. With the new casting issues, y'all might have heard Melissa Barrera, who plays Sam Carpenter, she was fired from the Scream cast for supporting Palestine, in which Jenna Ortega then followed as well and left. They were talking about possibly bringing back Neve Campbell, but of course she's demanding a certain price. So that's the reason she wasn't in this movie, was because it was too much for them. So yeah, same directors, Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, written by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick as well. Budget 33 to 35 million, box office 169.1 million. Not bad. 4 survivors of the Ghostface murders leave Woodsboro behind for a fresh start in New York City. However, they soon find themselves in a fight for their lives when a new killer embarks on a bloody rampage. I'm kind of down for the New York City location change. I don't know. Is this like the first East Coast Scream movie we've gotten? Maybe. Reprised roles: Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, Jenna Ortega as Tara Carpenter, Melissa Barrera as Sam Carpenter, Hayden Panettiere returns as Kirby Reed. Love that. Mason Gooding is Chad Meeks, Jasmine Savoy Brown is Mindy Meeks. And then new characters: Samara Weaving plays Laura Crane, Jack Champion is Ethan Landry, Liana Liberato is Quinn Bailey, Dermot Mulroney is Detective Bailey, Josh Segarra is Danny Brackett, and Tony Revolori is Jason Carvey. That's a lot, I know. The opening scene for this movie is with Samara Weaving. She is meeting up on a online date. I find it interesting that it took us this long to address the online dating plot, I guess. I mean, it was bound to happen eventually, right? Also, the opening kill, her being a professor of horror, I feel like this might be me reading too much into it, but it felt like a symbolic killing, kind of. Like, we are now stepping away from these earlier influences, this intellectual side of Scream, and we're going to make it more of your kind of run-of-the-mill slasher. That's what it feels like. This one, it wasn't as like, ooh, ah. It was like, okay, we're following the Scream script like down to a T. You know what to expect, when to expect it, and you basically almost expect the killers by this point as well, even though they try to lead you down different paths and whatnot. It's like 6 movies in, you guys. We're going to kind of probably pick up on most of the little tips and tricks that you've hit this far. But I also think, like, this film does kind of lack that intellectual discussion that the earlier movies had, or the earlier movies could really facilitate, I guess. But I do love also the focus on slasher films specifically being like a source of outsider art. She gets really, into it, and I think it's on purpose that the very intellectual horror fans are the ones being killed off in these opening sequences. I mean, Tara wasn't killed, but they tried. So I don't know if they're trying to reinforce this idea of like, let's cut the BS with the deeper meanings and let's just do Scream as a slasher film, but you kind of can't get rid of that. Now, this is also the very first opening sequence we get where you're revealed who Ghostface is right in the beginning. As soon as the murder of the professor happens in the alleyway, you find out who the killer is. That very much does subvert expectations. However, every time that they do something in these newer movies, every time they do something that is supposed to completely subvert our expectation, they go and reinforce the expectation again afterwards, like after 10 minutes. Because we find out who this killer is, he goes back to his apartment, and then he gets killed by another Ghostface. I know that it reestablishes the mystery, and I was grateful for that, but I would be interested to see how they would carry out a movie where you know who the killer is the entire time, where we're, for once, not the ones that are left out of everything, But they do state in that this is a slasher and nothing more. And I think by killing off the intellect and by killing off the surprise right in the beginning like that, it kind of reinforces that, listen, you're in for your run-of-the-mill slasher movie. Also, the Ghostface in this one feels very righteous, like he's giving Jason crap for killing his teacher, but then turning around and killing Jason. It doesn't make too much sense, and this Ghostface goes on a freaking killing spree. But Jason is talking a lot about the movies and whatnot, and how those have influenced him, and Ghostface, before killing him, does say, who gives a F about movies? So, I don't know, the motive with Ghostface in these killings feels very all over the place, I'm not gonna lie. But that also might make sense because this is, spoiler alert, the first Scream movie where we have 3 killers. Once again, more bad music choices in my opinion in this movie. Just saying, very corny. Also, more just bad writing for Sam's character specifically. There is good writing in these movies, just not for Sam's character, and I don't know why that feels shady. But Sam is talking with her therapist, and she's going into detail, about the events that occurred, and it's very clear that Sam doesn't know how to process all of it either, and that she's getting a lot of online hate as well. People speculating that she was actually the killer and that she framed people. The thing is, though, is like Sam's character is kind of like very closely related to Maxine, if you really want to think about it. Like, she's a killer, but she's not a monster, Also, everyone is very, very protective of Tara, and she refuses to go to therapy and not address the trauma that happened to her. She just wants to move on with her life, which I get that. But by the end of the movie, she admits, like, okay, clearly, we gotta do something. One of the moments with good writing is Tara and Chad. Their chemistry just on camera is so good that I think even if it is bad writing, which it probably is, it pulls it off somehow. Their relationship does start to unfold a bit, and it's pretty quick that we learn, or that the cast learns, I should say, that there is another murder happening, and Sam's ID was left at the scene of one of the crimes, so she's implicated, can't leave town, even though that's what she wants to do. They were very smart, and Sam was like, all right, grab your stuff, we're going now. And Tara was like, absolutely freaking not. Should have listened. But she can't leave the city, If you leave, just leave the person's photo ID at the scene and you're good. They're stuck there for the whole movie. She does get a phone call from Gail as soon as the story breaks, which that's expected. But then, shortly after, gets a call from Richie. And this is very much just like, they tried to move all the ways across the country, but the past and everything that they've been through, the trauma, followed them because they didn't really address it, Sam just tried to move on, and so did Tara, and now it's coming back once again. We are thrown right into this movie. All right, you guys, I know, like, we've done a lot of talking between the intro and now, but when that bodega scene happens, oh my god, you are thrown headfirst into it. And that's the most violent anything that we've had. I think it's also not the only gun kill, but shotgun. I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. And I think it's also kind of a testament to the times that we live in, which is unfortunate. But the scene in the bodega with the guns, oh my god. Good tension, though. My one issue is it was a double barrel shotgun, I believe. How many rounds can that really hold where you don't have to actually reload shells into it? That's just me. Also, I think the detective that we're given in this movie is a major red herring pretty much the entire film. But his daughter kind of validates it because his daughter is the roommate to the Carpenters. We also get the return of Kirby, which is incredible. She's also kind of a red herring. There's a lot in this movie. It feels a little sloppy that there are so many people where you get that suspicious feeling from, We also finally almost get another Gale slap. It's iconic. It's what almost to be expected in a Scream movie. We didn't get one last time. She deserved to not be smacked. But this time, Sam almost hits her. Gale is able to weave out of the way because Sam and Tara are both upset that Gale turned around and wrote a book about everything that happened when she said she wasn't going to. But Tara comes in and she gets her. And it felt more deserving, I think, for Tara. Even though Sam's the one that's having her character assassinated, Tara really deserved that. Also, like, whoever the killer is, I mean, we know who he is, but whoever the killer is clearly has direct information. It's got to be either Kirby or the detective. They tell you that right away. Because as soon as Sam gives the address to the detective of her therapist is dead. How are you going to say that that's just like a coincidence? We also get, of course, Mindy is the Randy in these newer movies. So Mindy gives us the breakdown that this is a sequel to the requel. Stab 2 took place in college, so this one will as well. And basically, like, it seems now we're just kind of repeating the original trilogy. Like, if they make a 7th movie, is it just going to be based off of the 3rd one? That's where I'm kind of being led to believe. I don't know. But the rules to a continuing franchise listed are a bigger budget, which means more deaths, mentions beheading, but we don't really get that. We don't really get it. We get a scene in the end where a mannequin has its head hit off and Chad yells, beheading! So, you get a bit of comedy with that. But we haven't had a beheading in the Scream franchise yet. We just haven't. And I think we're due for one. Expect the unexpected. No one is safe, even the legacy characters. And it's just meant to push an IP, intellectual property. No one matters. That's not Scream. That is not what Scream is. I'm sorry. I'm going to inject a bit of that toxic fandom that Richie was probably talking about. But that is not a Scream movie. Listen, if they're going to take this in the route of just your average slasher film, fine. And I wrote down being meta about your own franchises watering down doesn't excuse the laziness. Scream is about subverting these things, not just saying it and then doing it. And that's what the meta in these newer movies feels like, is they say something and then they do it. And oh, that's so meta because they said they would do it. That's not the vibe of the original Scream movies, right? Also, all of the different masks throughout the franchise are being left at the crime scenes. I also found myself wondering, like, why is Sam viewed differently than Sydney? Why did Sydney get the victim card slapped on her and Sam is having the actual killer card slapped on her? I just don't quite get it. It makes more sense in the end, blah blah blah. Ghostface was spreading all the lies, but I found it very interesting how public interest of basically the exact same events led to different outcomes depending on the characters. The scene, we're just moving through this one, guys. This is a long video already. The scene where Quinn also gets killed in her room, and across the way is Sam's like love interest. He's watching it and trying to get their attention. That was a good scene. And then like just kind of the terror of like, we know what's happening in that back room. They have no idea, and we're just like biting our nails for them to freaking realize. And then once they finally do hear what's happening, like the true terror sets in. And Sam notices someone hid all their knives. So it's way more closer to home than they originally expected. Someone is in their apartment directly trying to sabotage them. But this whole bit with the stabbing in the bedroom and then the ladder scene afterwards, it's very, very violent. They have to crawl across to the other apartment in between buildings. And of course, Mindy's girlfriend had already been stabbed in the stomach by that point, and she's trying to crawl across. Everyone else made it, but Ghostface shakes her loose and she hits a dumpster on the way down. And it's very graphic. This is definitely a very, very gory one. Not the worst, though, I would say. We are also revealed a large vault that Gale knows of somehow before the FBI does. And it just has all of the Scream, Stab memorabilia in it and true crime memorabilia. And Sam comes face to face with her father's costume and weapon. And Kirby reiterates that this isn't your average Stab movie. Mindy alluding to people not believing Stu is dead also happens during this scene. And we just get a lot of fanfare, I guess. I mean, it's every prop you could imagine from the franchise, truly. Kirby also talks about how her anger and fear pushed her into the FBI, so who knows, maybe Tara or Sam is going to have like a police arc. Their characters aren't returning, I don't think, so. They also do recreate like the phone call in the park kind of scene that happened in Scream 2. And as they are tracking the phone call, they see that it's coming from Gail's apartment. They travel uptown to try to tell Gail. And the scene with Gail, it's really good. It proves Gail is always going to be a fighter. It also shows very much like Sydney, how Gail has been conditioned to be the fighter she is. She knows exactly what to do. And even though Ghostface does attack her, does get her, we don't see her die, okay? She does not die on camera. And in a Scream movie, if they do not die explicitly on camera, then it's best to assume they probably lived. And I think she did live. I think they said, like, she's stable later on, so she's fine. And Gail also does say to Sam and Tara for them to tell Sydney that he never got her. Her and Dewey very much are extremely protective of Sydney's fears and Sydney's concerns towards them. It's nice, but also like if someone lied to me and said my friend was good when they are in a hospital recovering from a stab wound, But I think she said that also because if Sydney knew Gail was attacked, she would have come back. She would have come out of hiding because her and Mark and the kids apparently went into hiding when all of this originally started. Also, Sam refusing to move out of the way for the paramedics to get to Gail, freaking stupid, absolutely stupid. And she wants to sacrifice herself. That's not going to stop anything. Let's be so for real. Even if Sydney in the first movie sacrificed herself, it probably wouldn't have stopped anything, at least in that particular movie. Jump to, this one's very jumpy also. Now the group is going to try to get one up on Ghostface. They're all heading towards the vault warehouse memorabilia place where all the Scream franchise stuff is. And this scene is really good. It's very clearly like supposed to be Halloween weekend in New York. So many people are dressed up on the subway. Lots of misdirections and whatnot. But Mindy does get attacked. And she says, F this franchise, which, okay, I understand, you know, because you just got attacked. But also, there seems to be so much distaste for the Scream franchise kind of subliminally projected in these movies. And I don't like that. Like, I don't know. There's a difference between shitting on slashers and then shitting on your own franchise. I don't know. But once they make it there, Mindy was attacked. Ethan helps her, I guess. She lives. Don't worry. Detective Bailey tells everyone that the killer is Kirby, that he called and she was let go from the force a long time ago. She's crazy. So they just take that word. And Tara is attacked by Ghostface right as she puts her guard down with Chad and like has a really sweet intimate moment with him. Then they get attacked. Tara and Sam, they run off, but they stab the ever-living out of Chad. Oh my god. Not sure how he survived it. Literally, they all survived the final except for the killers, which that is different for a Scream movie. That is very different. But does that feel as like resolving? I don't know. But we are also revealed there are 3 killers in this one. It is Detective Bailey, Quinn Bailey, who's his daughter, and then Ethan, who's also his son. And we find out that Richie was his son as well, and their older brother. So it's literally a family affair to murder Sam Carpenter for murdering their son. Basically, that's how it goes. I find it interesting that their mother is also left out of the picture. Not really talked about, I don't think. So that's just interesting. Mothers are portrayed in such an interesting way in this franchise. I'm not gonna lie. Quinn also being still alive, was good, I guess. I didn't suspect that, but I don't know. I don't think that's enough to save my suspicions that I had of Ethan and of Detective Bailey, you know? The familial aspect with Sam as well, with Tara, but also with Billy, kind of juxtaposes this ghost face family of Richies, which I also kind of love that too, the family affair of like being ghost face. Sam also comes off as like a good kind of crazy, as well does Tara. Ethan is like taunting Tara with a knife and saying like, I always wanted to stab something in you, Tara. Which, I mean, that does relate to the slasher film, the sexual nature of it, I guess. Yeah, that does play into it. She stabs him with something, though, literally in his throat. Kind of metaphoric. That doesn't kill him, though. He has to be smashed with a TV by Kirby later on. But before Sam, because they're up on a balcony, Sam is holding on to Tara, trying to keep her from falling on the killer. And then Tara, it's very corny, but she does a whole, you have to let me go, Sam. You have to let me go. And of course, this is symbolic of Sam giving up that very overly protective nature of Tara and allowing her to fight her own demons head on. I do think that scene could maybe be a little bit too much like hitting the nail on the head, but it works, I'm not gonna lie. Sam in her father's costume also, really love that. It felt very complimentary to her character, you know, and it looked good on her as well. She looked like genuinely scary dressed up as Ghostface. Also, the way that she goes about killing Detective Bailey, because Quinn gets shot in the head. She's done for real quickly. Shot right in front of her father. Like I said, Ethan, he's taken care of. Detective Bailey, he gets knocked unconscious. Sam basically, you know, confronts him in Ghostface's costume and stabs the ever-living, again, out of him. Like, all over, up and down each arm, in his sides, in his legs, in his neck. It's very much kind of like overkill, and it's very fast. Sam has such a specific stabbing style that I don't think we saw with the other ghost faces, I'll be honest with you. And then, of course, Red Right Hand again plays as the sisters like reconcile after everything that they've been through. Kirby, Gail, Chad, and Mindy are still alive at the end of this. You're probably thinking to yourself, Christ, who died? Not many people. Not too many. So, like, in the original Screams, the Randy dialogue always told what would happen. Now we're kind of getting the Randy dialogue from Mindy, but it's not turning out that way. And then we get another cheesy kind of closer with Sam dropping her father's mask in the middle of the road and then just walking away with Tara away from the ambulances and everything. So, I know we breezed through that second one. My throat's killing me. I do want to check also with Barbara Creed. We're going to dive into this just really quick. Basically, I'm just going to read you a passage. This is of the Femme Castratrice. Probably mispronounced that. They do specifically reference I Spit on Your Grave and Sisters. I Spit on Your Grave is your classic kind of SA revenge story, which does play into some of the Scream movies. But Sisters, I think, is an interesting comparison to make. It's about conjoined twins. That part doesn't really have anything to do with it, but the duality of like a sister combo, I found interesting that they were touching on that. Now, I do want to preface this by saying this talks about castration. In terms of psychoanalytical theory, castration does not mean what we medically say no castration to mean. When they reference castration in these writings, it's more so about a mental castration, insecurity, stuff like that, or trauma. That would be a castration effect onto the character. Just wanted to clear that up because sometimes first reading this, you could kind of be like put off by the vocabulary a bit. Male castration anxiety has given rise to two of the most powerful representations of the monstrous feminine in the horror film: woman as castrator and woman as castrated. Now, I think the Carpenter sisters represent both of these. I think Tara is the woman as castrated, and Sam is the woman as castrator. We'll get into that. Woman is represented as castrated either literally or symbolically. Her literal castration is depicted in films in which she is usually a victim, such as the slasher film, where her body is repeatedly knifed until it resembles a bleeding wound. In other horror films, woman is transformed into a psychotic monster because she has been symbolically castrated, that is, she feels she has been robbed unjustly of her rightful destiny. I think that one is pertaining to Sam, that being robbed of her rightful destiny, being robbed of knowing who her father really is in the 5th film. I think that could play into that. I don't know as though necessarily that's what the directors were getting at, but just drawing parallels, why not? This version of the female psychopath represents a more conventional view of female monstrosity to that woman transforms into a monster when she is sexually and emotionally unfulfilled. She seeks revenge on society, particularly the heterosexual nuclear family, because of her lack, her symbolic castration. I think the whole scene in the beginning with Sam punching and tasing a guy in the balls over protecting her sister, I think that could play into that. Sam has her own frustrations as her most previous boyfriend was the killer, so obvious trust issues, plus the love interest with Danny, the new character coming in. Obviously, like, Sam is unfulfilled in some sense, and that's why this heightened anxiety is occurring between her and Tara. Whereas the castrated female, that would be Tara, monster, is inevitably punished for her transgressions. The castrating woman, usually a sympathetic character, is rarely punished. She assumes two forms: the castrating female psychotic and the woman who seeks revenge on men who have essayed or abused her in some way. That seems like Sam. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of does. And she assumes two forms, the castrating female psychotic. That's what Richie's family views her as. Whereas, really, more so, she is the woman who seeks revenge on men who have wronged her, that being Richie. But yeah, I'm not saying that that's directly what they were trying to get at, because I do think there is a nature of anti-intellectualism with these last two films. I'm not sure why I'm getting that impression, but I just am. Let's check the reviews, and then we'll be done for today. Okay, so top critical review. If you are walking into a Scream movie, you probably know what you are getting into. If you don't, they explain the plot to you step by step as it happens. This is one of the better Scream sequels, but that's a pretty low bar. It's also much better than Jason Takes Manhattan, but there wasn't much competition there either. I watched this because I assumed I wouldn't mind turning it off when I finished folding the laundry, but I ended up watching to the end even after all the clothes were put away. I wasn't disappointed that I had spent the time watching the movie, and I did feel disappointed at the end of most of the other sequels. For anyone coming fresh to the series, I would recommend watching the original and then watch this movie, because this movie spends most of its runtime recapping what happened in the other films. Overall, this movie was better than I expected. I was pleasantly surprised, but not that much. 3 stars. Basic run in the mill, but I mean 3 stars is also, they said it is what it is. Yeah, that's kind of what it is, isn't it? Oh my god, this one is so long. Killer's Steelbook for the collection. Okay, there's a lot of like random stuff in this, so we'll go to where they actually talk about the movie. The movie itself was a fantastic addition to the franchise. I love that they took Scream 2 and radio silenced it. It may not be noticeable on the first watch, but after 1 or 2 more times, there are very clear similarities and parallels between Scream 2 and 6. That's the point. The creative team pulled off these similarities remarkably. It's not so easy to take a movie and implant all of the things that made the original so smart and innovative without being blatantly obvious and keeping it fresh and new feeling while adding your own ideas and style to it. Radio Silence was excelled in this area twice now, and I'm incredibly anxious to see what they do for Scream 7. So there's that. Like I said before, I don't think Scream 7 is going to happen definitely anytime soon. They're going to have to really think hard on how they'll carry the story on. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. I know this was a long one. Lord, I always kind of put these off for a little bit because it's so much sitting down and talking. But thank you so much, guys. I truly do appreciate y'all. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and let me know what you thought about the movies. Like and subscribe, all that. The next movie that we're going to be talking about is Immaculate, starring Sydney Sweeney, a religious horror. So we're going to dive into that. I also watched The Omen, First Kill or something like that. I don't know. The First Omen last night. It was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty good. But maybe we'll talk about that one later on, or we can talk about Immaculate, talk about that one, and then kind of do like a theory deep dive into religious horror, maybe? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, those guys. Thank you so much once again, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.